Hey everyone, the Motivational Professor here, and in today's video we're going to break down two charts. We're going to break down the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and we're also going to take a look at crude oil because this amazing gap is still here and there is a lot of money to be made with crude oil on this gap. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts. Okay, so we are starting on the Dow Jones or the US30. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you zones. We're then going to bring in the 50-day moving average. And then I'm going to give you a couple of areas that I'm looking for on the US30. So the first thing that I like to do is I kind of like to go up here and I like to switch this over to the lines because I can see the zones much easier. I then like to grab a horizontal line, and all I want to kind of do is just with the naked eye, just look at some areas that I can come back to and then identify on a smaller time frame, right? I want to see where a lot of those touches are happening at different levels, right? We can kind of see that here. I won't even go one to the top side, and I'll do one more to the bottom side. So I can kind of see there by using the line chart method where price has gone to on this daily and either bounced off as support or stopped as resistance. Then what I like to do is to go back and go ahead and switch this back now to our candles, just so you can kind of get a big ballpark idea about these larger areas, right? Kind of these are the zones that I like to play. So now that we are on the daily, I want to have you look at this perspective from a 4-hour standpoint before we drop down, right? So we can clearly see here as we're moving this, right? If we were to take a rectangle, kind of you can begin to see how these areas were impacted. Now, I'm a visual guy, so I kind of like to look at these areas like this on my chart and kind of take a look because it allows me to see the charts a little bit clearer. That's what works for me, right? So as long as I have a box there, I can kind of see, okay, I can begin to see these different areas, even if I happen to be on my phone looking at these charts. That's the reason why I create these boxes, right? So we can kind of see here our levels of support and resistance on that 4-hour time frame. Now, as we do that, I want to go ahead and introduce the 50-day moving average. So if you want to do that, just go to here, the indicators, type in MO, right, for moving average. Pick this one right here and bring that moving average into your chart. Then what you want to do is go to the settings tab up here. You want to click on that. You want to go ahead and go over to inputs, and you want to go ahead and change that to 50450, and you want to go ahead and drop that in there. If you want to change the color, the thickness, and all that good stuff, you can, but you can do that later, on your own. So I want to bring in the 50-day moving average, and I'm going to show you why as we drop down to some smaller time frame. So now on the US30, what I've done is I've established my zones, right, based on the daily. I kind of verified some of those zones on the 4-hour time frame. Now I want to look for what the week is going to bring ahead. Right now, we can clearly see here that we are coming back into this area again. So let me grab a brush real quick. Right, we came here and we had a minor rejection, and now we kind of are coming back in here. So the scenario play, and I'll drop down to the 15-minute time frame in just a little bit, was if we get another rejection here, we look to sell this back down towards this 50-day moving average. As it happened here, you can see how price loves that 50-day moving average, and we're still on the 4-hour chart. Wait till I show you this on the 15-minute chart. Okay, so this is an area, this 33,681, that we kind of want to keep in mind whether we are going to sell this down or we're going to see a break retest and then come back up to our next major area, which is like 34,119. Okay, so let me put this marker away and let's jump all the way down to the sweet spot, and then let's take a look at this 15-day moving average, right? Because what I like to kind of call it, whether you like to call it, area of value or important areas, I like to look at the 50-day moving average for entries and or for exits, right? So on this rise here, we can clearly see how price came towards the 50 and then took off. We had a dip near the 50 and then took off. We had a dip near the 50 and then it took off. We had a dip near the 50 and then it took off. We had a dip down towards the 50 and then it took off, right? And we can see now we're kind of in this 50. We came up, we rejected the zone, and then we came down. So now what we do is we go opposite, right? We go opposite. The zone rejected it on the higher time frame, which is why I like the zones on the higher time frame. But now we are looking at this differently. Price came below the 50, hit it and came down. Went up to the 50, came down, right? Here it broke the 50 and kind of came back towards the 50. But again, it came up towards this area of resistance. So I like to use both the areas of resistance or support and the 50-day moving average. So we are back in this area right now, right? Like I would not be buying, like for me, buying is not going to happen here. I need price to come up here somewhere. And just if I'm not looking to buy from here, I want to see if I'm going to get some type of resistance in this area back down towards this 50-day moving average that's beginning to move in this direction, okay? So for me, what I'm going to look for as I kind of zoom out here is I'm going to see if we get this area hit again. We can clearly see here, right? We had that rejection. Let's see if we get that thing coming back up and then we get another rejection back down. So I'm going to be looking to possibly sell in this area with a very tight stop loss, right? Above the most recent high, which if you kind of zoom back, right? It would kind of be up here in this area, this 33,826, but my stop loss would be above this black line, right? Because at that point, if price does break above here, right, I don't mind taking a small loss because then I'm going to be looking for a retest down and then a continuation up as we kind of go back to the 4-hour time frame, right? I'm going to be looking for that movement back up into this area up in here, which is our next major zone. But we have to have kind of like that break and retest. So we would need a scenario like this for me to take another buy position where price comes back and then takes off towards the top side. But for now, this is the major area that we're looking at. And then one last piece of analysis before we jump into crude oil is I'm just going to throw a quick Fibonacci retracement from this high to this low right here, okay, where price took off, okay? And you can see here now that we are clearly, we rejected that 78.6 right here, right? Came up here, price rejected down, okay? And we kind of ended up in this, whatever kind of candles, I'm not really big on the candles, whether, you consider this to be a full doji candle or not. What I do see is this, right? Price came here before, rejected. Price came here now and rejected. Did not make a newer high up here. So for me, right, we have this W pattern, but are we now going to make M pattern depending on where price opens and gaps today? But we can clearly see when we're looking at the 50-day moving average, right? You can see that, the 50-day moving average has begun to swing up. Again, look at the area of 50-day moving average. That was a great buying opportunity for us, and we took it to the next zone. We cashed out here. Then we had the retest right there, that wick, and then back up to the next zone. Okay? So again, if you're brand new, definitely ask questions in the comments. I will get back to you. So if you've got some experience and you've done this before, hopefully this chart is giving you some value in the sense of I'm giving you the zones that I'm looking at, right? I only play off zones, right? Zones for me is number one. 50-day moving average is number two as far as looking at entries or exits using the averages at all the different time frames, even the 5-minute time frame, right? If we look at this from a perspective of 5 minutes, right, we can get some entries and exits on a 5-minute. Okay, so that is the US30. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into our oil because I think oil has a tremendous opportunity for all of us. And I'm going to kind of go to the 4-hour because the gap has not closed. So I put this chart out earlier when this gap happened last week, right? And so we kind of came down and you can see here I have an alert right here because once we break this equal lows right here, right? I'm definitely, back in for another major sell down towards the 50-day moving average and to close the gap that was created last Sunday, right? So I've been scalping this up, scalping it down, scalping it up, scalping it down with multiple entries, hedging both ways. But my big move that I'm looking for, the big move, is obviously for this gap to close between here and here. And that is a tremendous opportunity because there is a lot of, I'm trying to move this over to the side, there is a lot of big point system, right? So if we just kind of, let me see if I can move this, closing this zoom. Nope. Okay, so there's a tremendous opportunity between here. Let me actually grab, right? So between here, where prices come down to, and then between here, where price originally gapped, right? If we look here, 75.66 and 78.90. So we have more than 300 points, pips, whatever you want to call it. But price is currently here at 80.43. So today there will probably be another gap somewhere. But again, my play on oil is definitely to short oil because of this gap. Okay. So if oil, was to come back up here, I'm hoping that we gap up, to be honest with you, right? And I'll make this red. Like, hey, that's great. I'm going to be stacking up more positions up here to the downside because this gap is going to close. It's going to definitely come back down and close. So let's kind of go back to what we just did with the US30. Let me go over to this day chart. Let me get rid of this real quick so it doesn't confuse you. And you can kind of see right on the day chart, we've been ranging on the day, right? Let me make this little box. This is a little bit easier for you, right? That's been the high in the last 4 days that we've come to, and then we can fuse it. And then we can see here at the bottom, right? This has kind of been the average range that we've been at, right? So these are kind of our zones that we've been scalping on crude oil, because if we go down to the 1 hour, right, we're going to see the plays off those zones, right? Just kind of sitting back and playing off these zones, right? This here, obviously it's easy to tell afterwards, right? This was a false breakout to the bottom side from the zone. Price came back up, but gave us another opportunity through retesting to take this back up, depending on how long you wanted to hold your trade. We rejected that zone. We came back to the zone, another opportunity to buy, right? We came back up here to this area of resistance. You can see right here, start looking how this price is rejecting, came right back up here again, boom, back down to the zone. Came back up, back down. So we're kind of riding this range because I think they know everybody is sitting on some major dollars right here when it comes to the gap analysis. So that's kind of where we're at, right? We need to wait to see what price does. But again, for me, I am definitely going to be more of a seller than a buyer. I'll take some quick scalps on buys. But again, we are at the 50-day moving average on this 1 hour. We can see the rejection. So by all intents and purposes, we should continue to come further down this week with crude oil. And then lastly, let me bring up this 50-day moving average. So again, you can just see the value on this 50-day moving average when you use it with zones, right? So let me grab a marker. If you took this buy here, this would be your exit, right? If you took this sell here, this would be your exit because you're using both the average and the zones to work with each other. If you took this buy, this would have been your exit, right? Because it came up to the 50-day moving average. If you took this sell coming down off the 50-day moving average, that would be your exit because that's a strong area of support. Again, a buy here, a very quick exit. Okay, so we're kind of hovering off this 50-day moving average. We need to let price open, do its thing this week. Today's Sunday with the Sunday gap, and then you'll have some clarity. But for me, when it comes to crude oil, I am definitely a seller versus a buyer, right? I will buy short term. I will sell longer term because of that gap. Okay, I hope you got some value. And if you made it to the end of this video, you are amazing. Don't forget to help me out by taking the time on a Sunday to do a little bit of analysis for you. Just like the video, ask questions, post some comments so that more people can see this video inside of our video community. What I will be doing on every Sunday is giving you a longer analysis, but I'm not like some of the others. I don't trade 30 pairs. I look for 1 or 2 key pairs that I'm going to focus on for the week, and I sit on those pairs the entire week. So for me this week, it's US30 and it's crude oil. That is all that I will trade within the week. That keeps me focused. That keeps me learning those particular pairs even more and more, even though I've been doing it for 6.5 years. These are my bread and butters, right? Every once in a while, I'll jump over to another pair when the setup is there. But for me, I'm going to focus in this week coming up on these 2 particular pairs. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're brand new, if you've never seen these videos, if you're brand new to trading or you just want to learn, ask questions. And if I need to privately jump on a Zoom call with you, I can, but you need to post those questions or ask for that in the comment section. Because again, as I mentioned in my original video, which you're going to see coming up here in just a minute. I'm not going to send you to a link. I'm not going to send you to an opt-in page. I'm not going to send you for a freebie to grab your email. I don't do that. Everything will work in and out of YouTube unless you and I connect on a one-on-one Zoom. Okay? Thank you so much for watching and have a fantastic trading week.